How you doing? This is Mike from MCM Wing Chun. I'm going to do a video today, something I haven't really done before. I'm going to be talking about how to perform a form. I'm going to stick basically with the Siu Lin Tao to keep it kind of simple. Now, everybody knows the Siu Lin Tao. I'm not going to get into the techniques like this is Tan Sao, this is Bang Sao. I know everybody knows that. What I'm going to talk about is how I actually do it. So what I mean by that is, when I learned the form, and probably how most people learn the form, it's sort of like this stop and go. So in other words, you would do this, you go down, stop, there's a slight hesitation, start, come back, right? Bring the fist to the chest, stop, there's a slight hesitation, punch, slight hesitation, open, circle, come back, and repeat on the other side. I don't quite do it like that. So as to teach it, that makes sense because you're doing it very methodically, mechanically, So you're just concentrating on a single movement. Let's say you're going to do the Tan Sao. You start here, the movement starts here, and it comes out along the center line until about a fist distance away. Slight stop, then you stop and you go into the next motion, which is the Hun Sao to the Wu Sao. And you bring the hand back, right? Get about a fist away or so, slight stop, into the Fu Sao. Bring the Fu Sao up, again, to the fist away, to get the proper distance, the elbow distance and everything like that. It's all taught very mechanically and methodically, which is great. I think as a teacher, when you're teaching somebody who doesn't even know that, you have to kind of do it that way. You work on each movement separately to make sure they have it. However, once you actually know the form quite well and you've been doing it for a long, long time, I don't believe in actually practicing that way. So I believe when you train, whether you're training something good or bad, you're basically reprogramming yourself. Or some people might say muscle memory. So if you're going to do something over and over again, you should make sure that you're doing it in a way that's productive to your training. So if I were to do this like this, I do the Tan Sao, come out, stop, go to the next motion, stop, come back, do the next motion, stop, do the Fu Sao, come up, stop, and so on and so forth. Pak Sao, stop, come back, stop. Okay? I believe, in my opinion, that develops sort of like a bad habit. Because basically in Wing Chun, you want to flow from one motion to the next. When you're doing Chi Sao, it's based on a flow, continuous motion. You don't want to do just jittery stop and go stuff too much. So the way I would perform the form is to do each motion continuously. It has nothing to do with the speed. You can do it very slow, but there's no stop and go. So I wouldn't do this. Okay? That's stop and go. I would do it like this. Okay? So the only time I stop is when I bring my hands back. So that's sort of like a period at the end of the sentence. Dot, 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 dot. Stop. End of sentence. Next sentence. Dot, 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 dot. Stop. Set up. Stop. 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 That type of thing. You know what I mean? If I were to do the opening section, if I do the punch, so again, I'm punching, there's no stopping here, it's just one continuous motion. Even when I come here, once I punch, the hand opens immediately and circles around and comes back, then it ends here. Because you're concentrating on one hand at a time. So if I was doing both hands, then it would be just both hands. Like in the first form, basically you're just working one hand at a time mostly. As you do Chum Q and Bill G, it becomes more, you're working both hands simultaneously. Now the reason you want to practice this way, as far as, you would say, well, what does it matter? You're just doing a form. Again, I'm trying to program my muscle memory so it'll apply in the Chi Sao or whatever. When you spar, when you're sparring, if you're doing Tanda, you don't want to go very mechanical. You just want to do one motion. There's no stop and go kind of movement. So you're already in the form. You're starting off with the idea of that one motion goes into the next motion, into the next motion, into the next motion, instead of combination. Like if I went, that's a 3-movement combination. Tan, dan, let's say pak or whatever, right? Instead of just, where it's just one continuous motion. You can keep going and going and going until you want to end the motion, okay? The other thing is, in the form itself, sub-movements are, you kind of have to do a stop and go. For example, when you do the pak sound, when you come here, and you come here, you have to kind of stop because you're going here, and you have to come back, which is going in the opposite direction. If you're going this way, when you come back, you have to stop in order to go back to a different direction. So it's sort of, you have to do a stop and go. However, if you're going to do it that way. However, the way I do that section, I don't quite do it like that. So what I do is, instead of doing a line, another line, and another line, 3 lines, which is stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, it's a curve. It's one continuous motion. So it's like this. So again, I'm programming myself to flow, to go from one motion to the next, no stop and go. So if I went here, you see? Once I bring my hand back, then it stops. But all this motion is just one continuous thing. So even the techniques, the way I do the movements is based on it's not overly linear. There's a circular curve to it. So when you're doing everything that's very linear, you have this type of stop and go. Because it's a linear movement, you know, instead of a continuous motion. So if you're practicing the Siu Lin Tao form with this type of stop and go thing, and you've been doing it for 5, 10, 20, 25 years or whatever, how are you going to transition from that into a type of a flow naturally? I think it would be counterproductive. If you can flow, everything should flow naturally. Your form should flow naturally without the stop and go thing. So I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit of the Siu Lin Tao on how it will look or how I do it. Again, when I did the tan to the wu, there was no stopping here. Once I came here, this immediately went into the next motion. My arm was continually moving without a stop in it. Okay? So that's just some food for thought, so let me know what you think of that.